Hi, and welcome to the Conscious Marketer Podcast. I'm Richard Tabinger and joined by my co-host, Kylie Slavak. Hi, Kylie.
Hello.
And we are excited today to introduce you to Gaby Puma. And today we're going to be talking about sacred dialogue. And Gaby Puma is a spiritual coach, a visionary, and an author. She's the #1 international bestselling author of the book Women Who Lead. She has helped over 8,000 people transform their lives for the past 20 years. And she especially loves helping magnificent women, visionaries, reignite themselves into their oneness and wholeness for a prosperous and joyful life. Welcome, Gaby.
Hi, Richard and Kylie. What an honor to be here with you both. Thank you so much.
So good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for...
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I think having a podcast is one of the most amazing things because you get to talk to amazing people and get insights and learn at the same time. One thing we like to ask everybody, Gaby, is maybe can you share a little bit about your background and how you came into coaching and to your life's work right now?
Yes, absolutely. I am so blessed that my roots, my origin, being born to a small ancient village, Chinchero, Peru, in the Andes of Peru, to indigenous ways of being, to ancient spirituality that has been ever present in my path, that has cultivated the fascination of experiencing life in such a simple ways, in such a reverence to life from what I've observed. And that has planted the curiosity for me to, at one point, there were visitors into my indigenous village that I have heard about, and I would go to chase them around and harass in such a way that trying to learn from them and starting a conversation with them. And they were so strange looking, different than myself or our people around the village. And that fascination hasn't stopped to this moment of sharing about life and all the aspects of it in our beautiful world.
So how did you get from your village over to the United States and different places so that you could help people? I'm kind of interested in what that looked like.
Yes. So the fascination of this beautiful duality that started forming in my path of, on one hand, experiencing my ancient ways of being, indigenous ways of being, deeply rooted in nature and the land and rituals with my family, and in the afternoons hanging with travelers from around the world that had planted seeds in my life to go about and find out more about them, and learning more about them and their ways of being, their ways of life. And I started selling handcrafts that we would do some weavings in my family to them, and started saving from the age of 7, started saving money to study and get my tourism and the travel industry license. That started when I was 15. So from 7 years old all the way to 15 years old, I was in this, what I now call sacred dialogues with worldwide people, learning from them and me sharing about our ancient, simple ways of being and about our spirituality and ancient spirituality. So from the age of 15, serving people.
So you started to serve and you made a transition into coaching. How did that come about, and how did that start to expand in your life?
Thank you. So the official transition into our beautiful coaching world, it did not occur until 2017. Prior to 2017, I've been running spiritual retreats, spiritual trips around Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, to our high impact leaders in their sense of reconnecting, to their sense of oneness, back to their heart. In my own disconnect, being involved in the travel industry, in the corporation world, that I myself started resenting due to experiences that I have gone through due to my Indigenous background. And at one point, we may call it a spiritual awakening or self-realization that allow me to wake up to the ultimate reality of what and who we are, to that sense that our Indigenous people are very clear about of what and who we are, ambassadors of the cosmos, of our spiritual world, and living in such a reverence in simple ways to life. And I, in my own way of rebelling against my own roots and wanting to become a world-class in the business aspect and all the accolades and all the high life and traveling the world, and there got to be some other way to create this beautiful life and experience the wholeness of it. And that happened around 2017 all the way in Australia. And that has put me in this path of putting together all what I have experienced till that moment, and this time to continue serving through in-depth spiritual reconnection to our powerful leaders who are serving in our world very highly.
I love that you're doing that. It kind of makes me feel like the world is going to be a little bit better, of a place for you doing that work. And when you started talking about living the high life and wanting the accolades and just all of that, I think living in San Diego, and that's where I met you, there's just a whole lot of that going on where people are really striving forward and they're also doing spiritual business. So I'm curious if you see that those two things can in any way go together. So can we have that high achievement, wanting to live that good life, and those roots, although a lot of people in the Western world don't have the types of roots that you're speaking of, but can we be attached to and connected to that oneness and also be somebody who likes to push forward? I'm asking this for myself as much as for the reader, because I'm really like that myself. I want to go further and achieve more and do more and have nice things. And I like to think of myself as being a spiritual connected person, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. We'll find out once you answer. No pressure.
And there is where I very recently, given where our world is currently, the situation of the massive paradigm shift of the collective situation of the COVID situation, and this deep introspection that we are going about each individual and in the businesses as well, is that accepting all the realities, all the possibilities, and being okay with all the accolades, all the high life. It is because of that I have come to this space, to this reality of wanting or desiring to our own people, to our Indigenous people, to experience it all. It is available to us all. And finding a balance and harmony as each one of us start that, and that will ripple effect in our world, that none is worse or better. It is what and how you utilize that ultimately to impacting your own life, your own sense of wholeness, and your integrity and commitment to yourself, and reconnecting to that sense of love for yourself. And from that space, rippling effect outwards. So our world slowly shifts. So now, like for example, for me, the prices I charge for my services has slowly started shifting, because before, still having barriers because of my upbringing and in our indigenous traditions, we do not do business per se. And now I feel at peace when charging $30K, $40K, $60K for a year-round mentorship, that before it was that mental barrier, not even reality, that because of the work, the internal work of myself, having gained all the experience and from all around the world and from all the mentorships I myself have gone, business mentorship, spiritual mentorship, and all types of mentorship, that I've experienced it directly, first and foremost, myself, in the foundations to our ancient spirituality and indigenous ways of being.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because I was thinking of this story just a couple of days ago. But when I was making a transition away from financial trading, I took a trip to Brazil and Colombia. Eventually started to help some lineage traditions like the Mari and some shaman traditions and things like that as part of what we did in the agency. And I think it was the time that I spent in nature and with some of the people down in South America that actually influenced me quite a bit. And one of the stories was, I remember going on a retreat, and it was like a 7-day retreat. And the person was like, well, you have to hand over your phone and your devices. And I was like, well, do I have to hand over all of them? And they're like, oh yeah, you have to. And then they were like, well, how many do you have? And I was like, oh, let me think here. I had like 2 computers, 2 phones, and I had like 7 devices I had to hand over, it was super funny. And my mind was really, this is a while ago, quite active back then. So, but it was that kind of turning off and kind of relaxing into the space that enabled me to have the insights that I needed. Now, I know the title of this podcast is Sacred Dialogue. Could you share a little bit more about the principles behind sacred dialogue and what that means to you?
Thank you so much, Richard, for sharing that about our tribes in South America and worldwide, and which circles around beautifully, ties with your question about a sacred dialogue. It's all ancient traditions across the globe that when we observe oneself, all there is when we come into existence in form, in a physical form, and experience into the various aspects or territories that we were born in this earth, it's a sacred dialogue between 2 life forms or more that is getting back to the center, to that recognition, to that sense of oneness and wholeness, that you are not separate from anything or anybody. All there is oneself experiencing all across dimensions. And in the lineage I come from is the dimension of underworld, this world, and upper world. It's due to sacred dialoguing, not aiming to get to a certain point, rather than already everything is already here, already inside, already quieting the mind enough, which is the purpose when we go away from technology or our beautiful development in the modern world that we are now. Everything is already within. Your higher self, elevated self, your most evolved spiritual being, and the source is in here. So through sacred dialoguing, pointing back to that sense, from that recognition, through observing, through recognizing that, creating or that creative mode that we often refer when we are creative and receiving the downloads from the universal mind and from that sense of oneness and the universal field. Love, God, Great Spirit, Akashic Record, and all these names that we go about to reference it. Nothing, no less and no more than everything that is within in our heart, in our soul, in our spirit. And from that sense, we create the reality that we want to see manifested in this realm, in the physical realm. And I also talked about love, the sense of reconnection to love, the sense of going back to your sense of understanding of love at that higher power that you know that is the foundation of this experience. And that sense of reconnection to the higher power, from that space you are becoming more aware to then be committed to not lose track of that reconnection to love, and creating now consciously your life experience, business, impact, or whatever it is that you were put on this earth to create and bring about in the service for you, because you are it all, from that sense of knowing and understanding, in the sense of service to your family, to your community, to the business you are creating, and to the collective, to the universe. And it's all constantly weaving and expanding. And that is what I referenced in a sacred dialogue. Nowhere to aim, nowhere to be, but here in this moment, as life is unfolding in this very moment. And in this very moment, as the breath, conscious breathing, inhaling and exhaling, as simple as that is, that's all there is right now.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I feel like a lot of people have connection at a certain time and then they lose it. It's like intermittent and they almost forget. Are there some things that you teach people to do so that they have a more ongoing relationship and ongoing sacred dialogue rather than, going on retreat and you have it's like you plug in the and you get the downloads, but then you come back and then you forget, or that dialogue gets severed. What would your advice be to somebody who's like, look, I want to bring this in on an ongoing basis rather than have it be, kind of spotty connection?
That is such a fascinating inquiry. And very recently I have came to this masterpiece. It's the Book of Being, entitled The Ultimate Coach. And it's one of their principles, what they are discussing and proposing there. It's in so alignment with our ancient and indigenous ways of being. And the inquiry that goes about in this masterpiece, that I call it, is who I am being in every moment. It's everything. Meaning that in every moment, pausing, be it for a couple of seconds, who am I being, especially when big major events that are calling of you to create, to be in a meeting, in a very extraordinary meeting, or of dealing with your family or dealing with your partner. Who am I being? Who am I choosing to be in this moment? Or who do I need to be in this moment? And in the being state, in that state of being, innately you already are in being love, being commitment, being service. When you are being consciously, from there your doing goes about innately in communion with that sense of connection to your higher self, to your elevated self. So is this inquiry as a possibility, because each one of us are in our own ways of experiencing and creating life, business, play, and all of it. Who am I being? Who do I need to be?
I love that. And
in every now moment.
I want to just dig a little deeper with this spirituality and entrepreneurship, because we were talking about commitment before the call here today. And what I've seen, I've worked with thousands and thousands of spiritual entrepreneurs over the years, over the last decade. And when they bring their spiritual calling into more of an earthly form through business, I mean, it doesn't get that much more earthly than business, except for the actual earth itself. You know, it's very form oriented, and they get really, really triggered by the steps that it takes to actually do it. You know, give strategy, but also just supporting people through that process of, look, it's okay to do your calling, and it's okay to put it in this form, and it's okay to be in pain while you're doing it, and to be unsure of yourself, and to be unclear, and all of these things. So one of the things that I have found is recommitting them to their vision is a very powerful way to support them through, to teach them how to support themselves through the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. You know, when we're talking about the more like hardcore warrior types that are like chest beating and running around, you know, with Lambos and stuff like that, which is totally fine with me, then this same shit doesn't come up. Like, this just doesn't come up. They're just like rocking it and they don't care and they're doing it and it's not a thing. So if you've had similar observations, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, what are some of the ways that commitment ties into that for you? Not for you, but not for you personally, but just in general, how would you support people in that way, if that makes sense?
Such a fascinated perspective and reflection towards that. Because in my own path, there has been a lot of unresolved trauma and intergenerational trauma, and all the pain and suffering and the comparison and all of those lower frequencies that are vibrating, that are creating almost, well, illness in the body and the discomfort and all of it, that the distinction for commitment that I go about is that commitment to loving unconditionally yourself and all the realities that is out there. And in the every now moment, again, as I breathe this miraculous air that is being produced and given for me, it is so mundane to my clients when they come into realization. Really, literally, your purpose overall in this earth is to breathe consciously. As long as we do that, we are just about magnificent beings already and creating powerfully, no matter kicking the ass of trauma and all of that painful and comfortable things that goes about, of rightly so serving us powerfully to gain perspective. How big are we here to create? Because each one of us, no matter you in your Lambo sitting and rocking the world or a homeless in the streets, each of us, I choose to see them as in their pure magnificence. And we are here to create and shift our world and our life powerfully. We all are planted with the same, we have the same seed within us. And thank you for saying that, Kylie, because I have come throughout my process. I'm okay now. I may be getting my Lambo in a few more years. This indigenous entrepreneur, like riding her Lambo around. Why not? Just experiencing the magnitude of it all, and yet creating my impact to the world and to elevating the consciousness of humanity. That starts within me. I want to stress out that starts with me. And to the point that the depth of the work that I had to go through with my own parents, because much of my trauma came from them. And now I feel the richest that now I could call mom and dad and communicate in a sense of elevated way and at peace with it all.
I love that. And I got to meet your parents on FaceTime on the side of the road. So there's no better demonstration of what we're talking about, right? They're in their village, and we're chilling in San Diego with a internet connection in the middle of the road.
Yes, they wanted me so bad to marry somebody from my village, and somebody who is the same way of being like me, eating the same food and the same traditions, the same rituals. they were very disappointed very early on with that on me, revealing lots and lots of things.
It's kind of funny because the Stephen Pressfield has a book called Do the Work, and he talks about resistance in there. And he says there's three things that create resistance. And the first is, your mindset, kind of the obvious stuff. And then the second is kind of funny because it's actually your mind, which we talked about kind of going beyond thought a little bit here. But the third is probably the funniest to me. It's friends and family, because they have their own version of where you should go, whether or not that's linked to your vision and what you're meant to do. I worked with a teacher who taught some from the Hawaiian tradition, and they have a word there called kuleana. And it's basically roughly translated, aina is land, but it's kind of like what's yours to caretake, And so when they say, what's your kuleana, it's like what's yours to do in the world. And it's used in different contexts. But I think that sometimes the world tests us by trying to pull us off our what's ours to do in the world. And sometimes it's friends and family that do it.
Yes, thank you, Richard, for pointing that out, as in that itself created the biggest resistance in my path, the biggest contrast in my path, and honoring from my own way. My ancestors, like my great-grandfather, for example, was a huge medicine man who was in charge of healing our whole community. And by bloodline, carrying that big shamanic medicine and wisdom in me, and the family expecting to fulfill in their own way in that manner, and me choosing to share it with the globe and in my own ways. And the principles, the universal principles to the Hawaiian lineage, for example, and their native language that are based in the sounds of nature, from sound of the plants and animals and birds and the wind. For me, love, service, commitment in our native language, which is my first language. I learned Spanish at school and later on English. Munai. When you pronounce that Munai, it comes from the core of your womb, from where all creation happens, and the energetic center there, that is love, unconditional love. And Aini, commitment. Aini. And also it refers to pure awareness. And Sami, light and blessing. So when you are around in our path, as we experience life, in your recognition that you are love made into form, and then you become awareness, pure awareness, that you are committed to serving yourself and to everything and everyone around you. And with that, your Sami, it's birthed to blessing and sharing your light for you and everybody around you. So your aim, if you may, to fulfill, to live, to experience in one lifetime those three principles according our lineage, where I come from, and me intending to embed that in my business in Gaby Puma Global, and coaching our high impact visionaries and finding their own way of that principles for them, and finding their way of who and what they are being and what those values are for them to fulfill and experience in this lifetime.
Yeah, that's extraordinary and beautiful. And I love how the language weaves, and there's a vibration, like a frequency behind it. And I'm kind of curious. I know that your website is The Lightning of Hope, and you talked a little bit about light. And I'm kind of curious how The Lightning of Hope, the name, came about, and what kind of like your concept of light, like light and lightning, seems kind of like a flash almost. Can you share a bit more about that?
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. It's such a fascinating how my rebranding and now name and now my website has come about that encapsulates all of my sense of essence of who I am now, who I am committed to being now, onto how many ever years I am here to serve myself and our world. The lightning is that possibility to be enlightened, to make peace with the past and accept what has been and drop that and love that and experience your enlightened way of being, enlightened life. And lightning is still kind of encompassing the lightning, one of our biggest gods. And it is a sign for my village, for our lineage. When you get hit by the lightning, that is the sign from the Great Spirit. If you survive, if the lightning doesn't take you away, you become the chosen one, the medicine woman and man. And the most often it leaves you a mark in certain parts of your body. And I wanted to represent and recognize and honor my ancestors and my lineage in that form that is both enlighten the possibility to live an enlightened life and with honoring our lightning, which is the direct, most strongest sign coming from the Great Spirit. And of hope, there has been dark, super dark moments in my life where I felt tremendously hopeless, where all the pain and suffering and abuse and violence that I have endured tremendous amount of PTSD and trauma and autoimmune dysfunction in the body, that a total paralysis in my physical body, that I felt at one point I was it, that my spirit is broken and I am ready to check out from this world because it's fucking painful. And to have gone and to say yes to life, regardless of that there was something bigger, that all of what I was experiencing, that at one point it was going to serve greater possibilities. I have become in that process hope personalized, hope embodied in me. And now it is a joy and honor and privilege to create to whoever I meet, not only my beautiful, beloved clients, yet whoever I meet in my daily life. I intentionally put my speck of lightning of hope to them and seeing them directly in their eyes, and that they are wearing their biggest smile and a thank you and I love you unconditionally. It's my way of being now. And I'm so grateful because I have touched the deeper, darkest parts of our human experience.
Hope that people just feel your love coming through right now as they're listening, and some people might be watching and all of that good stuff. I have a final question for you. It's probably a big one. It might not be the best one to end with, but we're doing it. So there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years, maybe longer, about these different sacred destination journeys. And I know that you guide people through Machu Picchu and maybe other places. I don't know that part, but there's been a lot of criticism of sacred and spiritual tourism, especially from Westerners, going to the pyramids in Mexico, going to the pyramids in Egypt, like that there's in some cases an exploitative vibe around it. And I'm curious your thoughts on that. I know you take people on tours. Has that ever come up for you where people have come with that vibe? How have you supported that along? What are your thoughts on that in general?
from the space that I stand now and of who I am being in the every now moment, accepting life as it is, accepting and honoring the journey and the experience of each beautiful, with the great intention of each entrepreneur, each leader, each visionary in their own way of experiencing this. I honor it. Once we have this sense of understanding of ourself, given my lineage, and my lineage or ancient spirituality really in a simple way, it's all that ever was and will ever be, that access to Mother Earth, the greatest spirit, life itself. When you go to that sense of understanding, then you transcend all lineages, all belief systems, all of it. We are one. And I don't feel entitled to be judging and criticizing their experience of people. And there it goes back to love, commitment, and service. It is their own way of love and commitment and service for them. And I am here sharing my voice, sharing my stories, sharing my work to the ones who are in alignment with what I am sharing about. And rightly so. It all comes around.
It changes somebody's heart around something in their own life where something feels not so great, and they can take that perspective of what you're sharing without spiritual bypassing, but just from a real stance of truth. I love that you shared that. Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us here today. It's been such an enlivening, beautiful, wonderful conversation. And I know that people listening got a lot of value out of just being with you for this time.
Thank you so much. If I may, please share in the closing words in our native language to be embodied in our beautiful experience here and now. Saminjay kalpanjay tulunjay awarjay. Conscious marketer, conscious marketer, conscious marketer. Yes, please, if you would love to learn, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you on the other side, is thelightningofhope.com. And there you have the links to the social media platforms and the links for if you would like to learn more about my book and some other resources. Thank you so much. And I love who you are, who each of you are in our beautiful world, serving powerfully yourself, your family, your community, and our beautiful world. Thank you so much, Richard and Kylie. So honored.
Thanks so much again for joining us, Gaby. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or Amazon, you can also go to consciousmarketer.com/podcast, and you can get the show notes and the links over to Gaby's site. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
That was
Thanks,
great.
Gaby.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.